I don't want to think the worst. I don't want to, think anything besides that. My baby's just clearing her head.
That was the mother of missing young woman Amber Evans. Is there something that we can do to help her answer some of the questions she has? It's time to turn on the searchlight. Hey everyone, John Lorden here. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Brainscratch Searchlight. Today's case has really moved me. I'm finding a lot of information about Amber and the work that she has done. She seems like such a caring person, very involved in her community, a person that is bringing people together to try to solve very big problems, and she's doing it from a very young age. The type of person that inspires a lot of us. And unfortunately, she is now missing. And I'm hoping there's something that we can do to help with that. Let's start at the NamUs profile for Amber Evans. We can see she is a female, Black or African American. Date of last contact was January 28th, 2019, and she is missing from Columbus, Ohio at the age of 28. Let's just jump over real quick to learn a little bit more about Columbus. Columbus is the state capital of Ohio with a population of 879,000 as of 2017 estimates. It is the 14th most populous city in the United States. So back to the information on Amber. She is 5 foot 5 inches tall, weighs between 120 to 125 pounds. And for the circumstances of her disappearance, we don't have a whole lot here. Thankfully, there's been a pretty good amount of press coverage. Quite honestly, there's a lot of press coverage about Amber from before her disappearance because of all the work that she's been doing in her community, trying to make things better. But in particular, we will learn some more, but for the details they have here, Amber was last seen in Columbus, Ohio on January 28th, 2019. Her car was later found at the Scioto Mile in Columbus, Ohio. She was last seen wearing a white parka and black leggings. And that is probably one of the things that is most concerning about this case for me, is her vehicle is found in very close proximity of the Scioto River, a river which runs I think it's the largest river in Ohio that is all contained within Ohio. And we're going to learn that investigators are having some difficulty searching that river because of some conditions that are currently going on there as well. For hair color, it is brown, but they do describe that she has gold and caramel highlights in it. She has brown eyes. And for scars, marks, some interesting things here. She has a scar on her arm above her wrist. And I don't know if this is a separate area or if it's trying to describe that scar, but it says tic-tac-toe scraping skin scar. I'm really not certain what that is. I tried to do a little more research, but couldn't find any better detail on it. She also has an unknown tattoo on her stomach. For clothing, once again, white parka and black leggings, and that is it. This is honestly a pretty simple case profile for one of these cases. They do have many different photos of her here, which it's really not hard to get. She's been written about a lot, and a lot of those articles feature photos of her as well. Let's start with some of those articles from before her disappearance so we can get a little sense of who Amber is. Starting here at columbusalive.com, here is a picture of her, and the title of this article, Activism Through Criminal Justice Reform. Before Black Lives Matter, there was Occupy Wall Street, another social media-driven protest movement that invigorated young people. During that time in 2011, Amber Evans was a journalism student at Ohio State. Quote, a lot of us were just so inspired by the amount of community people coming together and the whole romanticized notion of 99% versus 1%, Evans said. So we were trying to think of how to replicate that on OSU's campus around issues of higher education. The oldest of 8, she grew up in a low-income family on the north side. I took a step back from organizing shortly after that and just tried to think about ways that I could be part of reaching out to our at-risk communities, she said. So I went to grad school for library sciences just in thinking about what my safe haven was growing up, which was the Carl Road Library. Today, Evans works directly with low-income communities and people of color through the People's Justice Project, PJP, which focuses on mass incarceration and criminal justice reform. As a youth organizer with PJP, Evans works primarily with young people from kindergarten up to age 24 who are either in the criminal justice system or at risk, including children who are suspended or expelled, who are in workforce development programs instead of school, and or receiving direct services from agencies. The goal is to provide different paths to power and leadership, according to Evans. Evans encourages young people to ask for help while realizing that they can also be self-sufficient. Quote, "You as a human being are extremely intelligent, extremely capable. You've just had a history of unfortunate events that have happened to you," she said. "But that doesn't mean that you're weak, and that doesn't mean that you've lost the legs beneath you." And as you can see just from that statement, this is a very intelligent and strong woman, and obviously with a huge open heart trying to help other people that have come up in circumstances that she can really empathize with. And I can't even go into all the quotes here. Thankfully, there's a large amount of information online. You can search on Amber Evans and read much more about her. But I am moved by the thoughts that she has about the issues that she's facing and her approach for trying to deal with those things. And, I try to not be very political on this channel. Some people claim that, my politics are completely obvious to them. I don't know how that is. I care about people. If it's a case about a person, I'm there and I'm trying to help. But Amber in particular seems to kind of line up with me a little bit in terms of we both want to see others do well. We both want to be there to help in ways that we can. And of course, I associate with her. Even if I don't agree with her methods, I'd certainly associate with her intent. And I think that's why just reading about her life has really moved me. Continuing at the JJIE, or the Juvenile Justice Information Exchange, we can see that Amber also receives some accolades. National Juvenile Justice Network honors leaders in Louisiana and Ohio. This article is written specifically about two women, Verna Carr and Amber Evans. Amber Evans of Columbus, Ohio, won the Emerging Leader Award. She started working for the Juvenile Justice Coalition of Ohio in October of 2015 as a part-time employee and transitioned to full-time in January 2017 as their Policy and Community Engagement Director. Her nomination praises her for an inside-outside strategy that blends traditional organizing and policy spaces. She has also led direct actions on racial justice issues with the People's Justice Project. They did ask her a couple questions, and once again, I just want to get a better idea about who Amber is as we start looking for her as a missing person. How did you end up in advocacy after getting degrees in journalism and library science? I felt that the dignity, voice, and existence of low-resource communities, Black families, and people of color were being threatened under the guise of journalist objectivity. I could not sit idle as my university was contributing to the displacement of low-income families. In that same year, my stepfather entered into his fourth year of serving a 5-year incarceration sentence. He was sent to prison in 2008, shortly before my grandmother was laid off from her 30-plus year career with General Motors following the economic crisis. This landscape of hardship led to an increase in the emotional and monetary support that I needed to provide for my family while processing my own childhood trauma. Being a librarian is my dream job, but blending policy and organizing with directly affected communities is my calling. What do you feel optimistic about? I feel optimistic about the power of young people and the instincts of directly affected communities to know what they need to obtain power. Once again, I just got to tell you guys, I'm very impressed. And by the way, I feel inspired by young people as well, people just like Amber, that are looking to solve these problems in non-traditional ways. Over at abc6onyourside.com, finally, this is the last article I'm going to touch on that is before her disappearance, but it comes up as a little bit of a theme because she's very clear about what she stands for. And does that mean that she could potentially be making some enemies? Mayor Andrew Ginther proposed a 2018 budget worth more than $800 million. The largest portion of the budget is for public safety, which includes 70 new police officer recruits and 80 new firefighter recruits. The People's Justice Project held a meeting with Linden community members. The group has been critical of the mayor's crime safety plan for years. We need to have a stronger investment in community-based programs and not just police, said Amber Evans. For us, it's about actually addressing the root issue of a culture that is rooted in a bias and prejudice in communities of color and low-income neighborhoods, said Evans. City Council will vote on the budget early next year. Members from the People's Justice Project said they will attend the hearings. Okay, so what happens? She goes missing January 28th, 2019. Articles start coming out literally the next day. Missing Columbus woman's vehicle found, and this is at wcbe.org. Friends and family of a missing Columbus woman will continue their search tomorrow as Columbus police continue to investigate the disappearance of 28-year-old Amber Evans. Police said that Evans's vehicle was found on the Scioto Mile in downtown Columbus. CPD have been working with the Franklin County Sheriff's Office using drones and an infrared camera to search for Evans, which hasn't yielded any findings. Amber was last seen in the vicinity of Bell Street and Washington Boulevard wearing a white parka and black leggings. Helen Stewart, a coordinator in a search effort, spoke with WCBE earlier. She's touched many lives. And I have absolutely no doubt that that is true. Here is a map of the area where she was last seen. And as you can see, I'm very concerned about the fact that this is so close to a water source. It seems to come up frequently. I just did an update on Quentin Bingley earlier today. We've had a few updates recently about missing people being found in water. I certainly hope that is not the case we're looking at here. Continuing at thelantern.com, Columbus police investigators are asking the community for help in locating a missing woman described as high risk and distraught. Police said she went missing following a domestic dispute. But her father, Brian Peters, has since posted on Facebook and said there was no domestic violence involved. I want to make clear there was no domestic violence, the post said. Her boyfriend is a good man. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a little bit of a term change that happened there. We have the police saying that she went missing following a domestic dispute, and her father's quote is saying there was no domestic violence. Now, there is a big difference between a domestic dispute, which could just mean an argument, as opposed to domestic violence, which you can't get wrong. There's certainly some type of violent act that's going on there. And her father actually clears that up in another article I don't think we're going to cover on this, but he's a bit more clear about that. But to his point, at least as far as he knows, her boyfriend is a good guy. Her family speaks about him in several articles, saying that this is a long-term relationship. He had been around for a long time, and pretty much they haven't seen anything to make them think that he could be involved in her disappearance in any way. Will you guys feel like that by the end of this video? I don't know, but we're going to continue with the information here at 10tv.com. The Columbus Police Special Victims Bureau said it's doing everything in its power to find out what happened to 28-year-old community activist Amber Evans. Searching with canine units, our dive team has done limited searching in the river. Unfortunately, the water is fast. It's moving quickly. There's heavy debris, said Commander Alex Bennon. Our helicopters flying over the area routinely looking for things we may have missed. Investigators said they have interviewed at least 10 people who knew Evans and said they've searched electronic devices for clues. Quote, and they have yielded information that has been beneficial to us. That's really all the details that I will provide at this time, Bennon said, who added that police have found no evidence of foul play. Evans was a passionate community activist who was vocal in her criticism of police-involved shootings and use of force tactics. Comments on social media have insinuated investigators may be slacking on this case. There's been nothing like that. I won't tolerate it. I haven't seen it, Bennon said. Police said as soon as it's safe to do so, divers will return to the Scioto River to continue the search. So up to this point, we haven't got a whole lot of information about the timeline leading up to her disappearance. So let's see if we can start pulling out some of those details. This is over at dispatch.com. We can see another photo of Amber here. It looks like she is at a protest of some kind. This is a photo from May 22nd, 2017. Amber Evans, 28, reportedly had a dispute with her boyfriend that afternoon before dropping out of sight. Evans has been active in community justice organizations for several years. She's been a key organizer of protests at Columbus City Hall and heavily involved with the People's Justice Project and the Juvenile Justice Coalition. Police said there were no known domestic violence issues with Evans's relationship, and there is no reason to suspect foul play at this point in the investigation. So obviously, I think this is the third time I've said that. They are making it very clear they have nothing to point towards foul play. Investigators in the Franklin County Sheriff's Office have tried to ping Evans's cell phone and have used drones to search for her. Community groups have also organized searches. Now, that's interesting because we now find out her cell phone is with her. We know her vehicle is found. We're going to bump into some information that her purse is actually found in her vehicle, but in a little bit of a strange spot. It's in the trunk, which if we run down the mindset that she is going to end her own life for some reason, I'm not exactly sure why she would put her purse in the trunk and then lock that up and then take her cell phone with her. You know, we've looked into some cases here on the channel where it seems like that's the outcome. And quite typically, cell phone seems to get left behind, and we don't have that happening in this case. On top of that, I've seen no mention of her keys. I would have to assume at this point that her keys are also with her, but that is an assumption. Let's go ahead and continue with more information at myfox28columbus.com. Mother of Amber Evans holds out hope as search for missing daughter stretches to 1 week. Tanya Fisher is holding a vigil every day now in her home. She's constructed an altar bearing pictures of her daughter, illuminated by candles and shrouded in fabric resembling the drapes in her daughter's bedroom. Evans had been at a meeting in Columbus last Monday afternoon, then spent time with her boyfriend, according to what Fisher has been able to piece together from police and friends. At some point Monday evening, the boyfriend called Tanya and said Amber had left to take a drive somewhere and had not been heard from. Assuming her daughter had gone to a favorite spot to clear her head, Fisher drove downtown to the Scioto Mile and crossed the bridge at West Rich Street. Now, let me just make one clarification here. I've seen two other articles that are actually saying the boyfriend suggested to Tanya to go to that particular spot. So this article has it written a little bit different, like Tanya knew that to be a favorite spot of hers, but two others are saying the boyfriend actually told her to go looking in this area, which I don't know that we have a whole lot to think this is a foul play situation, but it's interesting if that information did come from the boyfriend, because if he thought that, why wouldn't he have gone down there to look for himself? And you'll see what I mean when we talk about how hard it was for the mother to spot the car. I came around the corner there at Bell Street and I stopped right there in the middle of the intersection, Fisher says, because I saw a silver car that resembled hers. So it does just have me scratching my brain a little bit, wondering why would the boyfriend have recommended that the mother go down to that particular area? I think I would have just driven to that area myself to see if her car was there. And if he did go there, he probably would have seen the car fairly easily. When you couple that up with the questions about the purse being found in the trunk, certainly a little strange. Is that enough to say foul play? Certainly not. But I do think it's something that we have to keep in mind as we're looking through this case. The car was Amber's. She was not there, and the car was mostly empty. Amber's cell phone was also missing. A quick search of the area turned up nothing. The distraught high-risk term was used because Columbus police believe Amber left her boyfriend following a domestic dispute. Fisher said, "We don't know anything further as far as what goes on behind people's closed doors, but I've never seen anything wrong with my daughter." And that is her commenting on the status of her relationship with her boyfriend at the time. We're going to see that literally the next day, more information is released coming from her mother, and the perspective on that relationship quite a bit different than we're getting in this article. But an important point, Fisher is urging people to keep looking around Columbus and to keep talking about Amber to see if any new information emerges on her whereabouts. And I think this is a good point to remind you, as always, all the sources we're going through today, as well as contact information, is in the description box down below. If you have some information about this case that you think can be helpful, please use that. Please contact the authorities, put that information in their hands, and maybe you can make a difference with this case. Also, if you have friends that live in the Columbus area, let's keep the exposure raised to this case. Please share this video with them. Let's continue with another article at 10tv.com. Amber Evans' mom says daughter's disappearance doesn't add up. And this, interestingly, this is an article released fairly close in time to the last one, but we're going to see some of the details are starting to shift here. Tanya Fisher tells 10TV Amber left a work meeting at 5:30 p.m. last Monday, wasn't feeling well, and a receipt shows that she bought cold medicine at 6:30 p.m. Then at 8:07, Tanya received a text from Amber saying, "I love you and I'm sorry." With no response to texts after that, Tanya learned from Amber's boyfriend the two had broken up that night. Tanya found Amber's car. Her purse was locked in the trunk. Tanya is actually a former mental health worker and firmly believes her daughter was not suicidal. "There was no way she would have done and made something so final," said Fisher. "I know what final looks like, and this is not final." So very interesting turn now that we get a bit of the time frame put together, and in particular with that text message, and kind of on the heels of the conversation, just if we're running with the theory, I'm not saying this is my belief, but if we're running with the theory that this is some sort of foul play situation, could that text message have come from someone else that had her phone? It's possible. We know that at 8:07, that text message was sent. So I would like to think that investigators have already pulled at least the ping information for when that message was sent, so they could at least triangulate what area it came from. I don't know if they potentially could get GPS information as well, but they might be able to really drive down to a very specific location where that text message was sent from. Was that from the river? Was it from somewhere else? I don't know. These are just considerations that are going on in my head. But now we're also starting to see that there's some possibility that something else could have been going on with Amber at this point. She could be severely emotionally distraught. We have her leaving a work meeting, which, if we look at her history, this is a woman that knows how to work very hard. So for something to take her out of a meeting involved in that, I think it would be somewhat important. Could it be that this breakup has been going on over a period of days and she's having trouble dealing with it emotionally? I don't know, because we then have her stopping to buy cold medicine at 6:30. So it kind of sounds to me like she's just not feeling great physically, and she's looking to try to get something to help that. How do you go from all that to 90 minutes later, if we do see that text message as an admission that she's going to end her own life? That happens within 90 minutes of buying cold medicine? I don't know. It seems like a strange set of circumstances here, and I'm having trouble understanding it. Now, we've looked into a lot of cases where it seems like someone took their own life, and the conditions are not always easy to understand. You have to realize that we're dealing with a very hard to understand perspective if someone is going to end their own life. But by all signs here, it seems like Amber was kind of just trying to take care of herself. And is there some more information that we could find about her trying to, or first of all, struggling, but if she is struggling, trying to handle that? Yeah, I think we are, but we've got some other information to go through first, starting at refinery29.com. Father of Amber Evans says something about her disappearance doesn't add up. So we've had her mother say it. Now we've got her father also saying it. Brian Peters was planning on asking his daughter, Amber Evans, to accompany him to Natalie's, a pizza and live music joint in Columbus, Ohio, to watch a friend play. Though the two hadn't seen each other in a bit, they would talk and text frequently and had plans to get together soon. Like Fisher, Peters doesn't believe his daughter was suicidal. I have a real hard time believing that she was suicidal or severely depressed, but who knows? Maybe she hid it well. I know always dealing with negative situations and constantly fighting for something can take its toll, Peters said. To know her is to love her, and I just want her home, Peters said. She is strong, always willing to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. I just want the world to know how amazing she is. I love that girl. And I'm sad to be sharing that message with you in this context, but I'm very happy to hear that that is where her father's at in terms of his feelings about her and understanding some of the pressure that she might be facing with her line of work. Another article over at Refinery 29. It's been 2 weeks. On February 7th, the Columbus Police Department's dive team was scheduled to search the Scioto River, which is close to where Evans's car was found, but the search was postponed due to rising river waters. It is unclear when the search will resume. Quote, pray, search, post, and breathe through this process, and trust. No news doesn't mean bad news. Evans's mother, Tanya Fisher, posted on Facebook February 3rd. So as you can see, up to about 2 weeks, we have the family trying to keep hope alive, sharing their feelings about the case, sharing some insights about Amber's personality and what she might have been going through. But we also have something strange in the Columbus police having to defend themselves a little bit. To another article at ABC6 on your side, Columbus police defend strategy in 17-day search for Amber Evans. Naturally, the river would be the first place to look for her, and Columbus police did for only 1 day. But they say they can't do more until the very high and fast-moving river calms down. Quote, it's not because we want to keep the boat from going up and down, said Police Commander Alex Bennon, who leads the Special Victims Unit. Side scan sonar works so much better with the waters flowing smoothly. Bennon said the day after Evans was reported missing, one diver entered the Scioto and did a pattern search, swimming back and forth across the width of the river to feel for a body or evidence. After heavy rains and snow melt, the high water is washing large debris, including tree trunks, down the Scioto, which the commander says will put dive teams in danger if they go into the water. Bennon says the Columbus Police Dive Team assesses the river every day, waiting to go in again when it's safe. Now, just based on these details, I can tell you guys, I'm already pretty concerned. I mean, if you have tree trunks that are flowing down that river and we are thinking that there's a body that wound up in that river, the likelihood that it's traveling is probably extremely high. I don't know if they're trying to look at spots downriver where they might be able to analyze if a body could move to that particular location. Is there any spots where it could get stopped by something? I've looked into the river a little bit. It seems like some parts of it are extremely small. So I don't know if there's any choke points that come up. I would like to hope that they're doing that type of analysis, but we don't have those types of details. Columbus police have heard from local activists who work alongside Amber in her roles at Juvenile Justice Coalition and the People's Justice Project. They worry her past protests against police may be a reason law enforcement isn't in a hurry to find her. She made a few people mad in this city, her mother, Fisher, said. Police insist that holds no weight at their department. That is of no concern to my investigators. We are working on a missing persons case, Bennon said Wednesday. I will not fail someone else's child. Absolutely not. I'm just going to put it to you guys. Do you think that this is affecting this case? I'm really not certain. I have to think that these are professionals, and I kind of appreciate Bennon's point of view here that he is really focused on trying to help the parents in this missing persons case find their answers. And does that necessarily matter in terms of what Amber does professionally or what she does in terms of her political and social rights? I don't think so. It seems like Bennon is kind of coming from the same or from a good place of understanding that what's important here is the family and them finding out what happened to their missing loved one. At least I would like to believe that that is a perspective and that he's being honest in portraying that. But let's definitely discuss that a bit more in the comments down below. Back to another article at refinery29.com. Since activist Amber Evans vanished nearly a month ago, few updates have come in about her disappearance. Some have accused the police of dragging their feet on Evans's case because she's been critical of law enforcement and her activism, an assertion the department strongly denies. Quote, While every missing persons case is important to us, the news has actually aired this case more than many others. We also posted it on our social media pages and don't commonly do that for missing persons cases. Denise Alex Bazonis, a public information officer for the Columbus Police Department, told Refinery 29 in an email on Saturday, "We value everyone regardless of race, political affiliation, career, or whatnot." Police say the search of the Scioto River has been stalled due to unsafe conditions for divers. "We had a reported drowning February 22nd and unfortunately could not get into the river because of the rising and moving waters," Alex Bozonis said. "We want to get in as soon as we can to see if Amber is in there or not, as well as the man who supposedly went in." So very good chance that they're actually waiting to find 2 bodies potentially in that river. "We have 8 detectives in our missing persons unit. As you can imagine, they have big caseloads. We rely on family and friends as well as tips to assist us in locating the missing," she said. "We want to provide closure to Amber's family as well as the thousands of others who have loved ones missing." So now this is a spokesperson, but we've also heard from the detective. If they're being honest about their perspectives, I think that they're absolutely both in line, and that is how these cases should be handled. We shouldn't see these cases through a prism of color or politics or career choice or social commentary or any of that. What's important is one of us is missing and the others should be helping to find that person. And that's what I truly hope is going on in this case. Over at ColumbusUnderground.com, search for Amber Evans renews focus on mental health for community organizers. So obviously, as we're going to see through this article, many people are considering the fact, could Amber have ended her own life because of the pressure she's dealing with? And we see they've picked a picture here where it looks like she is getting emotional at a rally as well. Amber Evans, a tiny human with a powerful voice, a friend to many, a comrade in struggle to others, is lost. It's been 10 days at the point of when this is being written. Aramis Malaki-Tour Sundiata, co-founder of PJP and longtime associate of Evans, says, "You never really come to terms with the kind of work you do as an organizer. You can become numb to it, but it's not easy. You lose people in this. It's intense, seriously," he says. "I learned this from one of my mentors a long time ago. So you see the first one, second one, third one. At some point, you have a timeline. 2 weeks of this, 6 months to rebuild, and you're prepping your people who haven't gone through this before. Be cool, baby. It's going to be all right. You lose people in the struggle." How do you come to terms with that? He says, you don't come to terms with it. You're at war. Helen Stewart, another community organizer and friend of Evans, says people in her line of work are notoriously bad at self-care because as Black and brown organizers, they're subjected to the same conditions they're fighting against. "A lot of us don't have money for a counselor or therapist. A lot of us don't have insurance," Stewart says. "So we still have to figure out a way to support each other and care for each other when we know we lack those resources ourselves." And then there's the guilt. Guilt for taking time from helping others to dedicate to self-care, and guilt that results from the fight for justice itself because when you don't get it, you feel like you've done something wrong, she says. The result is a community of organizers dealing with unaddressed mental health issues, which Stewart said she knew Evans struggled with. So we're getting some clear messages here that Amber's certainly struggling with this type of work. And that they all do. It's kind of an interesting thought that didn't really occur to me before I reviewed this case, but this has to be one of the toughest jobs. And imagine this is your job. This isn't just something that you're picking up. You've got, I'm upset about this particular issue, or I'm going to go join this protest. And, maybe once a month I'm going to go do this. These are people that are steeped in this fight day after day after day. And that's why they describe it as a war. And they describe that they do lose people through this. Mental health, certainly a very big issue in this type of work. But let's continue here to some details about the particular day. This is Helen Stewart once again. I had just had a meeting with her the other day at 5:30 on the 28th, the day Evans went missing, on how to allocate resources and the best way of delivering resources to the youth and their families. And it was a great meeting, says Tucker. So we're all just trying to figure out, what the hell? If she needed a goddamn break, why didn't she just tell me and leave? Erin Upchurch, a social worker and executive director for Kaleidoscope Youth Center, says the community needs to have the bigger conversation about mental health stigma among the organizing community and in communities of color in general. Quote, get outside of the narrative about being strong and redefining what strong looks like and not glorifying this enduring of pain, enduring of being tired, enduring of everything, she says. There's a lot of conversations about what's next because we're forever changed, regardless of what happens. And we need to build something that can hold. It's just, once again, it's like they're talking about being in war. Wars usually have an ending. Do these types of wars actually have an ending when you have people that are doing this as their day job and the social issues are taking, in some cases, years or even decades to be addressed or to make slight steps of progress in? Yeah, just a really, really tough thing. So there's another article I want to touch on just to see, was Amber, I mean, we get a good sense that Amber was struggling, but was she trying to do anything to deal with that or to cope with that? And that article mentions Zora's house. I wasn't sure what Zora's house is, so I want to start by telling you guys a little bit more about that. Zora's House is the only co-working and community space in Central Ohio catering specifically to women of color. Our mission is to equip women of color with the clarity, confidence, and community they need to live their best lives and do their best work. And interestingly, if you scroll down on their website, I'm pretty sure this comment here is from Amber. Zora's House is a sanctuary. There are so few spaces where women of color feel safe and supported enough to dream and build a life centered upon our experiences with other women of color. Zora's House is that space. And it says this quote is by Amber E., Zora's House member. So over at ColumbusAlive.com, we get a write-up on Zora's House and Amber's involvement. Obviously, this is an article from before her disappearance, but not much before it. This article is from December 5th, 2018, on finding self-care while striving for social justice. The deaths of 2 black men and 1 boy at the hands of Columbus police between 2016 and 2017 captured media attention and riled up communities. At the center of all 3 families' justice-seeking actions was Amber Evans. I started to get more and more burned out, Evans said. It became so much of a need to take a break, but then there were a couple of us that were still in the fire, in the thick of it. Sometimes there's this desire for people to understand the pain of black women in a way that's almost like an extraction, she said. There's the practice of seeing black women as powerful, and unfortunately, in some types of organizing spaces, there's an attachment to black women that isn't necessarily healthy. So I think sometimes in order to advance the work, black women are tokenized. She was inspired to develop her own firm, Black Sage, after having so many different discussions in the sanctuary space with women of color, she said of Zora's House. I talked about my frustrations and their frustrations with the way our social justice landscape is and how it isolates black women. Black Sage will focus on creating social, political, and economic strategies to advance electoral politics while centering black women, Evans said. It's meant to be a space where we can identify new leadership to be more representative and reflective of our democracy. For Evans, Zora's House is one of 2 black women-owned businesses in Columbus that provides self-restoration. She also patronizes Replenish Spa, which offers yoga and beauty services downtown. I think with Zora's House, it's a different type of self-care, she said, like the self that you are working towards becoming. So it's really interesting to me that you literally have an article written about this specific woman trying to take care of herself. And then we have this theory that comes up with her disappearance a little bit over a month later, that she was struggling so bad with her career that she might have ended her own life. I don't know if it's really feasible. I don't know. I'm just showing you guys the information that I've found. I don't really have a strong feeling of Is that possible? Are we looking at a foul play scenario that hasn't been identified yet? Is there something else out there? Is there a crime of opportunity potentially being committed here? Has she run away? Did someone pick her up from that location and she just hasn't come back to her world yet? I don't know. But I did find a particular quote at her Facebook page, once again, just to give us a little insight into what type of character we're talking about here when we're talking about Amber. And this post, I think, kind of sums it up a little bit. Ohio is for champions, and I used to be something of a track star. Wearing my old medals before starting day one as executive director of the Juvenile Justice Coalition was a nice reminder of that. Certainly a woman that has a lot of accomplishments and is contributing to this world in a very significant way with very meaningful conversation. And I think it would be a better place if we found Amber and she was able to come back and get to work and maybe find better support if that's what she needs to be able to do that type of work. There is also a GoFundMe that is being run at this point, and it is being done for donations will go into a savings account dedicated to Amber and managed by her family. This funding will go to manage expenses that Amber or her family may have to take on and endure as more concrete information comes to light during the upcoming days and weeks. And it's hard because they're asking for funds, but they don't really know what they're asking for yet. It is being listed as for a memorial. Are they going to have to pay for services for her? Could they potentially start an organization in her honor? Is she going to come back and need some type of support structure or possibly counseling or maybe medical treatment or things of that nature? We have no idea. So I, on behalf of myself and my supporters, on both Patreon and PayPal, are going to make a donation to this as well. I want to be part of this pool and help this family with whatever they face in terms of Amber, since she has helped so many families with what they face. So what do you think, Brain Scratchers? We're really running all over the board on this one. Is there potential that she ended her own life? Certainly. Are we seeing indications of that? Some things certainly seem like they could be indicating that. But outside of that, we also have a bit of strangeness that I can't quite put my finger on. The purse in the trunk thing, there's just something about that that's getting me. The text message, I don't know if it was her and being written that close to after she was doing something. Once again, in terms of self-care, I mean, she's literally trying to get some medication to help her with her cold. Seems like she left work because she wasn't feeling well. Going through a breakup, how bad was that breakup? Is there potentially a violent situation that happened in that? Or are we saying that it's strange because if I'm the boyfriend in that case, and I know she goes missing, first of all, I'm probably going to cool down to the point where, especially if I've been around that family for a number of years, where I'm going to want to help them in the search. And like I said, right off the bat, I'm not going to tell her mom, hey, you should go check down by the river. I'm probably going to do that myself, because what if you did find her down there? If you were really concerned that she could do something like this, would you want her mother to be the one to actually find her? There's so many angles for me that kind of bother me about that information coming from the boyfriend and leading the mother to the discovery of the vehicle. Outside of that, I think the boyfriend also has an opportunity to speak to the press. I mean, this is obviously a case that's getting a good amount of coverage, and he might be able to give us some insight in terms of her tying that day. I mean, did he see her right up to the point where she left? Was he around her when she's sending that text message to her mom? How did all of this fit together? We don't really know. We don't have a great timeline. We have a few events in this day, but we don't have a very good timeline leading right up to her disappearance. I also don't know, is that area heavily populated around that time of night? Is there any potential that there's witnesses to see her vehicle pull up or to see her get out? I don't know. There's a lot of questions with this case, and I imagine what the family's dealing with all their questions as well. And I truly hope that their answers are on their way. And I really, really hope the answers are not actually in that river. But we will keep an eye on this case and we will keep you guys updated. Thank you so much for being there and caring about these cases like I do. And please remember to share this if you have friends in the Columbus, Ohio area. Take care, and I'll see you back here on Friday with a brand new episode of Brainscratch on the Lord and Arts channel.